Nintendo. Just checking. Yep. And we are effectively live with the Lessons Learned podcast. Today, we're Capcom, and this is going to be, we're going to do news, but we're also going to do, sort of the end of the year kind of review where we talk about, our stuff that we play, stuff that we comment and all that. You'll probably see another stream of mine where I talk about, you know, my year in gaming, and I'll cover some of these issues. But suffice to say that this is us talking about our year in gaming. But before we do that, it seems that there seems to be quite a bit of news this week or so, but between last show and this one. So let's cover some of them before we go into the year in gaming. Let's start with a very interesting one. We always talk about Nintendo a lot. Two pieces of news for Nintendo. Seems that, Nintendo and Sony first. The PlayStation Classic games appear to run better on SNES, Super Nintendo Classic Mini, using an emulator, according to VG247. Using an emulator can run PSX games on SNES Classic Mini, which is not so much of a piece of news. It's more like, that's weird.
So, the day they came out to launch, we actually went out to the store.
Mm-hmm.
With the PlayStation. I don't think I've told the story yet on stream, but we went to Target and we asked. We didn't see them stocked anywhere, so I just asked the guy at electronics, like, "Hey, do you guys have these in?" Like, "Oh yeah, they're in the back. We just haven't had a chance to even bother to bring them out and stock them out onto the floor." So I'm like, "So has anybody come in and asked for them, buy them at launch on the day off?" They're like, "Nope." It's like, no one's come in and asked for them or bought them or buy them at all.
I guess they didn't have any pre-orders, and that's why they were like, we don't really care. So
yeah, no. And I was just at Target the other day, and they they seem a little overstocked, compared to the Super NES Classic and the Nintendo Classic. There's twice the amount of PlayStation Classics sitting around. So it's just kind of sad that Sony's just kind of stooped so low to just be cash grab.
Yeah, I mean, all of them are cash grabs, but some are a little better cash grabs than others, or they become more grabby as the time goes by, I guess.
Yeah. And at least from that article, it's some certain games that the PlayStation Classic kind of has trouble playing. They have latency issues, or they're choppy. The Nintendo Classic kind of runs better. Although it's not all games.
But the fact that your competition in cash grabbing can actually do better than you do, it's still
at running your own games.
It's a bit embarrassing.
Yeah, well, especially your competition's hardware that's meant to play less graphically games that have graphic fidelity to them.
Yeah, well, literally from Super NES. Yeah, no, because the direct competitor to the PSX would have been either Nintendo 64 or the GameCube, depending on how you look at it. No, actually, the Nintendo 64. So it's one generation before that.
Yep.
Wow. That says. I mean, of course, modern hardware being what it is, I suppose it will have a little more horsepower to spare, but still.
Yeah, it's just embarrassing. I don't know if it's also it just kind of brings back memories of the thing that started Sony or PlayStation was the entire feud between the fallout between Sony and Nintendo over the Play Space Station, not PlayStation, one word.
Yeah, and it was all I think about who gets the rights to the
A disk-based
this made
Nintendo system.
the CD-ROM and all that because that was proprietary to Sony and that sort of thing and Nintendo wouldn't catch up to using proper CDs or anything like that until the Wii.
The GameCube. Well,
No,
I
the
mean,
GameCube had the mini disc,
yeah.
which
Well,
didn't really go anywhere.
no.
It's a bit too compact. Talking about Nintendo, we have another from Silicon Era. Nintendo heads to German court over unlawful eShop practices. Now, Nintendo's always had a bit of a problem with their eShop, and Japanese companies in general don't seem to be as advanced as Steam when it comes to this stuff, Western developers. But here's what Germany has said. Germany has, and the article says, Germany has filed a lawsuit against Nintendo over having unlawful consumer practices, specifically the fact that the eShop does not allow pre-order cancellation at all, which kind of cancels the idea of a pre-order.
Yeah.
So basically saying what it is, you're just ordering a product. And even then when you order a product, if you haven't received the product, common sense says that you can cancel anytime, especially if it's a digital product that doesn't, just a matter of sort of downloading and that's it when they allow you to or when it's available. But it's not like a physical product that they have to assemble and put in a place and send in a box and it's not like you get to cancel it while it's in transit or something, right?
Yeah, and it's not like a custom made like object.
So that's very weird. And it's a reminder that even Nintendo is just another company. Talk about money grabbing. The Nintendo Classic, the NES Classic, the SNES Classic. I mean, they.
Oh, and of course their cash cow this month is Super Smash Bros.
Which is doing well, I suppose. It's a lot of people are getting great reviews. But then it's Super Smash Bros. So I wasn't surprised that happened. In other news, and this is actually. We talked about this over the time of the year, and this is some news, at least for game workers at UK, United Kingdom. According to PC Gamer, Gamers Workers Unite UK becomes the country's first games industry union. That it aims to tackle crunch and harassment. The tweet they sent out was, GameWorks United is a legal trade union. We're proud to announce that we have become a branch of IWG Bunyan, or IGWB Union, not Bunyan, a small, dynamic, and effective trade union where if you're working and you're worried that you will be exploited by the games industry, join. And this occurs for us in the idea of, crunch, especially under the news of the Red Dead Redemption 2 and how they talk and the bro culture at Riot, which we also will talk about.
Yeah, we've been putting hundreds of hours a week on.
Yeah, and
into this game.
And the thing about it, I think it's very good because particularly Red Dead Redemption is Rockstar North is in the UK, so we'll see how the management of Rockstar and Take-Two, will they remain quiet? Will they launch a anti-union drive?
Yeah, so it's interesting, but of course it's one of those that we have to kind of wait and see because the thing that powers union is the workers and people joining up. So there has to be game developers are willing to sign up for it.
Yeah, and I think that's where. And there is decisively, especially in tech industries, a very anti-union, anti-traditional worker rights attitude because it's a new tech and people are supposed to be freely to come and go and workers are supposed to be both have more power in the tech industry, but also tech industry jobs are always put as like, oh wow, you have this great opportunity to be part of the tech industry, be an innovator. Why would you join a union? No, you don't have to do that. It's just more power. Nah, you don't do that. And disruption and all that. So we'll see. I mean, and by the way, still the UK is far stronger when it comes to trade unions and so affiliations than the United States. Talking of which, we can talk about Riot Games and what
Mm.
happened to their COO, Chief Operating Officer at Riot Games, COO. Um, Riot Games has suspended its chief operating officer, Scott Gelb, for 2 months without pay following an internal investigation into allegations of workplace misconduct against him, according to internal email confirmed by Riot Games to ESPN on Thursday. The news is he got suspended, not fired, for what a lot of people on the reports have come in and being gross misconduct.
Oh yeah, wasn't he like fond, like just groping people
Yeah.
randomly?
I mean, this is harassment. Usually people talk about harassment. Oh, it's male employees
Yeah, I
harassing
think that he
women.
was like kind of both.
Yeah, he was just a bully, basically. Gelb's suspension comes after several current and former Riot employees alleged that he repeatedly touched her testicles and made other inappropriate contact for comedic effect. The report said Gelb 40 will be required to undergo unspecified training. Riot says employees were notified. This is from ESPN, by the way. So it goes how big the news is. Employees were notified earlier this week about Gelb's suspension in an email sent by Riot Games CEO Nicolo Laurent, which Kotaku published a portion of, followed by Riot providing Variety with a copy of the entire email on Thursday. In that email, Laurent stated privacy concern around Riot employees and the company's investigation. He cited Gelb's position in the company and a position by Riot Special Committee to board of directors for why Riot acknowledged Gelb punishment both internally and publicly. This and other investigations into alleged sexual work misconduct at Riot were conducted by Chicago-based law firm Seyfarth Shaw. Yeah, but anywhere else, this would be a firing offense. For no other reason than keeping this guy around still exposes you to lawsuits.
And,
right?
and this isn't the first time we've heard this issue from Riot Games this year, right?
No. I mean, this isn't something I've been ongoing with this harassment.
It's an entire culture thing.
Yeah, I mean, Riot Games sued for gender discrimination November 6, 2018, so it was a month ago. And that probably is still ongoing, right? So I think I think this is less about doing something about it than to maybe show the court that they're mitigating. Right? That's a term, actually. That's a term of art, legal art. You mitigating the consequence, like, oh, we've done something about it, essentially. That's what it means. And I don't think that's gonna fly, bro. I don't think that's gonna fly. A judge, if it's a lawsuit and not mediation, for example, mediation probably will fly, but not in a court, because mediators work a little bit different.
So the only reason they keep this guy around is that the company finds him an asset, even despite all of this.
Well, it's described as bro culture, so I'm guessing this is a kind of guys. We founded Riot together. Remember Riot Games is League of Legends, and League of Legends started as a mod for StarCraft 2. So we're probably the people who are running this company, or some of them are literally the guys who were working around a couple of computers somewhere. Somebody's like, and this might be a joke they did between them, and nobody said, hey, listen, now you're part of a corporation. You have employees. The kind of personal jokes, the elaborate rituals that we do in order to allow each other to touch our genitals are not required and not accepted in a wider environment, regardless of the gender or personality of anyone in the company. Corporate, if you're running a corporation, you're supposed to have a specific type of, a behavior. And flicking people's genitals, regardless of genitalia, is not a thing. And you can do that in your privacy, right? If you have a relationship with someone and you take them to privacy of each of your homes or a third party, and you enjoy flicking genitals to each other, that's the thing you like, then that's fine. Consenting adults.
Yeah, the only time that should ever be done in a professional setting is if you're a sex worker of some kind.
Which also requires consent and paying for specific services. I suppose I'm sure there's probably millions of people out there who are into genital flicking. And now, if Tumblr hears about this, it'll be the next Kinkto showcase. That's fine, I suppose, right? I mean, it's called flicking the bee for a good reason. That might be a variation of that, but I mean, I don't. I mean, like one guy in Facebook was like, "Why did this guy just get punched in the face?" And I'm like, "Well, because probably he's the chief operating officer, right? Like literally, he's as far as the employees are concerned, he is like their direct boss. There's a CEO, the CFO, COO, and the way it works, CEO is the chief, chief officer. He's the boss of the board, right? CFO, chief financial officer, people who actually writes the checks or supposed to have the eye on the money, and the CEO is a person who's have the company. It's the person who runs the operating, i.e., the personnel. So, yeah, and that's how it works. I mean, I still probably get fired after I punch him in the face. Like probably the first time it caught me off guard. Second, I was like, okay, you're getting your ass kicked. Call security because there's an ass whooping coming your way. But that's that's just me, I suppose. But I can see why people want to be intimidated. Like it's their job, and I want to.
Yeah.
That's how harassment works, folks. People have huge leverage over you. That they're your bosses. Yeah, and that's why it's horrible. But talking about a harassment of a different kind, corporate to corporate harassment. You brought this video by Young Yeah about Blizzard pulling developers from Hero of the Storm, which is another big piece of news.
Yeah, this just goes back to something you've been pointing out. It's Blizzard is now Activision is starting to kind of really pull their influence in terms of how Blizzard conducts itself in terms of finances.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like, hey, this lesser game that you guys are working on, axe it. You're done with it. Like, don't support it anymore.
I mean, Heroes of the Storm, and the way that it goes, that they're gonna support the game, but they're not gonna support the league, right? And Blizzard has been for the last 4 or 5 years basically done very much in the competitive scene, right? Starting more than 5 years, but really they expanded to almost all their games. I think Diablo 3 is the one that hasn't really a competitive scene yet. But when it took up with StarCraft, the original StarCraft, they've been trying to expand it. And Heroes of the Storm, which connected to Riot Games in a weird way because it's a MOBA, they lost that court case that that League of Legends belonged to them because it was done with a mod. They lost that court case, fine, so they created their own. And the thing about Heroes of the Storm is it really was, more than anything else, it was about branding, right? And like I said, another thing I've been saying for a while is that Blizzard on itself, up to recently at least, has had this idea of becoming the Disney World of video games, where they have this sort of unitary, holistic branding about all things Blizzard, right? So, you play StarCraft, and the heroes of StarCraft are in Hero of the Storm with Diablo characters and this, and then, you have crossovers with Overwatch and stuff like that. But it was never really as popular or as successful as the other MOBAs, in part because when it came out, MOBAs were under decline, and people thought that it was baby's first MOBA anyway, so it didn't have the sort of intense competitive feel to it, other MOBA. So I'm not a big MOBA player, but, I know people who do, so there you go. And so that's the thing. And another thing is, and there's been questioned about it, I think Young Yeah sort of hinted at it, is that if Blizzard is not hurting for money, doesn't seem to be hurting for money, then the question is why is Activision sort of putting the kibosh in certain things like that? So do they expect there's going to be losses of money, or as we talked about before, is Activision trying to make sure that Blizzard's finances are tight, so that essentially Blizzard serves as a slush fund / coffer for them to cover their, present and future missteps and adventures, as it were.
Yeah,
right?
And they also don't want to, we've been talking about it throughout the year that Activision is, they're quote unquote stagnant in terms of a stock, and your camera like keeps
Oh,
trying to autofocus a
okay,
lot.
sorry.
But like well, like I keep bringing it up that their latest Call of Duty game only made $500 million, and that apparently that was considered a disappointment by stockholders. So it's also a way of trying to control the money. It's like, oh no, gotta try to limit our production, our operating costs and whatnot, just to try to look good in terms of what our financial statement is and our bottom line
Yeah, because
for
Wall
the
Street.
investors.
Yeah, Wall Street always loves the fact that people tighten their purse strings or fire people. That's always because it lowers operating costs, as you just said. Whether or not that's actually good for the business, it doesn't matter. It looks good, and you get an upsurge on stock, or at least you maintain the stock. So, yeah,
And of course there's the other side to the story, which is the all those people that have invested their time and money into like the Heroes of the Storm as an esport are pretty much out of a job now because they decided to cancel this upcoming tournament for it.
yeah,
And
and
I mean, I don't know too much about the esports scene and whatnot, but apparently this has been a big deal.
well, it is because it's how can I say this? It's expensive to be a coach and sponsor a team. Essentially, it's like any sports, right? You get the people that are supposedly good at it, you recruit them, and essentially they spend 4, 5, 6 hours a day training, and training is playing the game. It's their day job, right? And if they cannot then go to competitions and win back some money, that means that all the time they spent doing this was for naught because there's no competition to win, right? There's like it's like training to be a golfer or a tennis player, and then it's like, oh, we cancel all the tournaments for this year. It's like, so that means I don't even get, because people talk about the grand prize, but there's multiple prices for second, third, and fourth places. There's sponsorship deals. There are different tiers of competition, not just one competition. So you maybe you don't win the big prize, but you might be a runner up or something in a secondary scale. So there's a lot of ways this is sort of self sustaining. And this is one of the things about esports that most of the control is still very much with the parent company. And I think we talked before the podcast began about Nintendo. So this is, it's unilateral, right? Blizzard, when we're actually talking about Activision canceled it. There's no league outside of Blizzard, right? So it's not like, oh, we have a league of this game. It's like there's no independent Heroes of the Storm or MOBA league. There's for some other things, but not for this. And that means, if Activision decides that they're not going to support anymore, they're not going to support it anymore. Period. End of story. Right? If they were in an independent league where, like, fighting games are more like that, right? So you can go to Las Vegas and they have Smash Brothers and they have, Street Fighter and all that. It's in the, one Capcom can say, and we'll talk about Capcom in a moment, say, okay, I don't want you guys to be playing Street Fighter anymore. Okay, we have these other games, right? You need us more than we need you. But when it comes to stuff like MOBAs and other competitive play, it's just, the company has complete control, and basically all those people got screwed, and probably they're college age kids and stuff like that. So
yeah, I think I was hearing once like I've dropped out of college for this. It's like, oof.
Yeah. That's tough. Talking about Capcom is at it again. This time around, they're going to give you eventually virtual currency for watching ads on the latest Street Fighter.
Oh my god, this is. Can we say we're on a slippery slope now? Just
I don't know, we're at the slimy bottom right now.
or I mean, like, are we just like halfway down already?
No, I think we're just in the slimy bottom. We literally are more. It's like the slippery slope end up in the slimy bottom, and we're kind of in the shallow end, but we're getting dragged like quicksand back into the bottom, right, to the center, and it's like that's what I feel that's what it feels like, right? People are trying to crawl up again with loot crates or loot boxes are too to this. Okay, here's another splosh of slime that comes down the chute, and you go back again.
It's like, hey, ads in your $60 games.
They're not the first, and Jim Sterling, you want to watch. I'll link to the video. I mean, this is not really new. Product placement in video games is not really new. There was a big controversy a couple of years back about real life guns in first person shooters. That's the link to Jim Sterling's video. Not Infamous. It was the other. What's the other game? It's Infamous versus Prototype. Okay, it was Prototype. If you were a Prototype was in many ways kind of like when I watch playthroughs of Spider-Man and the PlayStation, it reminds me of Prototype. Where you basically jumping and wall running across the city of New York, their version of New York, you would see ads. And if you're 360 or your PC, you were connected to the PC and the internet, you would get regularly updated ads for movies, for GameStop, and stuff like that, right? And not rival companies. EA wouldn't advertise in your game, but you would get advertising every so often. On one hand, I think it's sort of like, yeah, it's makes your game a little more realistic in certain situations because you would expect some ads, and having like fake GTA or Saints Row ads on the walls kind of feels like kind of odd and a reminder that this is not a real world. But on the other hand, it's like it just feels slimy, like you said. It just feels off. It's like we're so desperate to have this game make as much money as we can because reasons that are they gonna chip us bags of Doritos and Mountain Dew as well? Like get a free year subscription to Doritos if you watch this 30-second advertising.
Actually, I was just poking my head at my subscriptions, and it seems Jim posted a new video. What is it? Pre-order fuel, game fuel for the Division 2 early access beta, or the beta. So yeah, that's where we are.
Anna, if you watch this on the VODs, the next emoji that you're gonna do for my channel is gonna be my version of this. Because it just needs an emoji. It's just like, what the frick?
It's just it's I guess it's sort of like the opposite of product placement. It's like, hey, let's put our product, the game, into other products so that people would buy it, and it'd be kind of like a circle.
Yeah, I mean, and we just came out from last month of the Game Awards, which were the Game Advert Awards. Except that the advertised games didn't actually get the awards. They got some other games got the awards, which also got them advert. Jeff Keighley, just so you know. I mean, remember, I'm just gonna post this picture because it's just
the Dorito Pope.
Yeah. Because it's just ridiculous. It's just. And let me read to you from the Know Your Meme page where it comes from. October 18th, 2012. We're in 2018 to 2019, so 6 years ago. Canadian video game journalist, well, not anymore, Jeff Keighley had an interview with the video game website LevelSave.com to talk about his experience with Comic-Con, Halo 4, and the Mountain Dew and Doritos XP. So yeah, we had this all the way back to Halo 4, where you would get XP if you bought Mountain Dew and Doritos. During the course of the interview, Keighley was surrounded by product placement for Mountain Dew and Doritos, promoting Mountain Dew and Doritos XP, promoting an event between PepsiCo and Microsoft, where gamers would get double experience for Halo 4 through codes placed on Mountain Dew and Dorito products. This is for the multiplayer, by the way, which in a way it's kind of like, game breaking. You're buying power. The video was nearly 50,000 views and over 12,000 downvotes against just 125 upvotes, all who probably work either for Microsoft or Pepsi, because why the heck not? Or really are fanatics of either Doritos or Mountain Dew. his reasons. I mean, it's crass in a way that is like just make your. I mean, they're literally in many mobile games, for example, will give you the opportunity to go like, okay, you want to pay microtransactions, you want to pay, don't pay anything at all and get adverts, right? I think
Yeah.
so. It's there, but it's like it reminds me of when they started putting commercials all the way back on VHS. Like, oh, I remember people. Well, I can watch this movie in my home, and I don't have to go through the 25 minutes of whatever before the movie, all the advertising of the movies. And it's like, no, hey, first of all, the FBI will remind you that pirating this movie it's illegal. Don't do it. And then they started putting adverts, and then the same thing on DVDs and Blu-rays. It was like, but the reason the reason why I pay you $30 for this DVD or Blu-ray was because I didn't want to see the adverts. I don't want to see advertising. So it's self-defeating. I think ultimately that's what it is. I come to a point that it's just self-defeating. They'll make some money, but not too much. Talking about going back full circle again to lawsuits. Teen who created the floss dance move joins Alfonso Ribeiro in suing Fortnite over dance moves. Russell Horning, known as a Backpack Kid, is now suing the makers of Fortnite because of the games using the dance he created called the floss. The mother of the 16-year-old from Georgia is who filed the lawsuit because he's a minor. The Daily Mail reports. Horning is the second person to file a lawsuit against Epic Games over dance moves it was used in the games. Actor Alfonso Ribeiro of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air filed 2 lawsuits against Epic for its use of the Carlton dance moves in the game. The suits names Fortnite developer Epic Games, Take-Two Interactive, we talked about them before, creator of the NBA 2K series, and several other subsidiaries. So again, I don't know how to feel about that. I think this is gonna fail in court.
Yeah. So
yeah,
I don't know if you can copyright or trademark. I think trademark would be more of an appropriate term for a dance.
yeah.
Like, how many video games have like the Macarena in them? I don't think the people who made the Macarena like sued people like, oh no, you got like a reference to our intellectual property in your
Yeah, I mean, it's like
game.
Michael Jackson would have sued the hell out of everybody who was trying to do the moonwalk, which usually everybody did it wrong anyway, right? It's like, don't know about this. I think it's one of the few cases where it's gonna backfire. It's gonna bring more people to go like Fortnite. Oh, that's just the dance that everybody was dancing because it was cool.
And I'm wondering if this is just because Fortnite is popular and it's everyone's got dollar signs in their eyes. They want a piece of that pie.
Yeah,
Whether they deserve it or not.
I think the only way this is gonna work is that they can prove that the video misrepresented them in some way or another, mock them, not even mocking them because satire is allowed on the law, so especially in American law. So I don't know. It's just a piece of news that I thought was interesting, I guess. So yes, now that we've gone through the confusing part of the news of this week, I guess we can start talking about the games that we played. So, Chapamon, do you have a game that you played that just sticks in your mind? It doesn't have to be in alphabetical or calendar order, just games that you thought about that.
So, I've been looking at my list. So, right now, I finished The Order 1886. I think this game came out like 3 years ago, but oh, wow. So, it's been a while since I played a game where I got to a point in its story that just made me really want to throw my controller at the TV. And wow, this, the saying, as wide as an ocean and deep as a puddle.
Yep.
So The Order 1886, it's more like as wide as an ocean and as deep as an ocean, but there's this like glass floor that only lets you step in, as deep as the puddle. But you can still see. You can still see how pretty it is and interesting, how pretty and interesting this ocean is. And but that's it. Like you can only see it and maybe even speculate it. You can't be among it because it is so it's like there's so much lore and there's so much interesting stuff, but it's so shallow. It's like it's almost feels like that you're supposed to go out and read like stuff outside the game
Mm-hmm.
for things to make sense. The characters, I didn't care one bit about the characters, and it kind of combines a couple of things I hate that I really hate seeing in fiction, and that's and this comes to personal taste because I see it a lot, and it comes to seeing English as in like England
Mm-hmm.
fiction have like elements of like other English fiction, but oh no, it's real. Like, what if it's real? In this case, it's King Arthur.
Mm-hmm.
I never grew up reading any King Arthur or anything, and it's a trope to me, and it's like so overdone. It's like, oh, the round table, it's real. The knights are real. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
whoop de doo. I find that this interesting, and then another one too, which I hate. Another thing I hate is freaking this fascination with Jack the Ripper. It's like, oh, Jack the Ripper. Jack the Ripper's around there somewhere. It's I hate those elements. It's like it's so overdone and so unoriginal. It's like come up with something different. But like it's got interesting things. The graphics look fantastic. The the facial animations, I'm sure they did a lot of mocapping. It looks great. Um it has a steampunk element to it, which I like. But like that's pretty much all it really has going for it. It's pretty, even even though it's so dreary. Like the colors are so dreary, and I don't think London's that dreary. I've
Mm-hmm.
never been to London, but I don't think it's that this colored. But yeah, no, this oh my God, and it's just this it feels like it's supposed to be the start of a franchise that apparently they kind of want to revisit, but they have no current plans of revisiting, and it's short. It's really short, and it just ends terribly, like a cliffhanger. Like don't waste any time or money on this game.
It's the game that could have been, as opposed to the game that it actually was.
Yes, but and this is brought to us by the same team that did God of War.
Mm.
So it's like I assume they took so quality wise, it's really good, and I'm sure God of War's good, but I'm sure God of War is a lot longer and more satisfying.
Yeah. Okay. Games I played this year. Well, let's start with the game I'm playing right now, which I'm playing for a second time, which is BattleTech. I would put BattleTech on the honorable mentions of my year when I talk about the game, my own, in review for the channel. I would say BattleTech is a game. It's an honorable mention because if you like tactical games, if you like giant robot games, and people say strategy games, but really it's tactical, kind of XCOM style, and you really are into the BattleTech universe or you know about it, it's a perfect game. But if you're not, for example, you want something even more challenging, a la XCOM 2, that gets more challenging, or you're not really familiar with it, there are aspects of the UI that can be very tricky to figure it out, unless you sort of dig into them and investigate. Actually, I had to watch a couple of videos to figure out a couple of things the first time around. Second, they've done some improvements, but the DLC they dropped right now, I haven't bought it yet because the ratings, the reviews have not been great. Like, I'm not really gonna get into that. And the game has some very nasty bugs and glitches. Like, for example, I signed up with Paradox, got somehow kicked out of Paradox because my game won't recognize. It got updated. It didn't recognize the fact that I was at a Paradox account. I tried to go to Paradox account. they won't recognize me either. But then I say, okay, well, can I create a new account? Well, no, you can't because your email is already signed to this account. So the account exists, but I can't cancel it. And I was like, should I? And that's for skirmish mode. And it's like, do I really want to go and talk to somebody on the phone and see if that we can do? And did you try this? You try that? I was like, nah, I just want to play the game. And the one thing that's really would probably be a game ender for a lot of people is does it have a nasty bug that sometimes when you finish the game, like when you have the ending animations and you get the mission debriefing, oh, you did this, you that, whatever, but before it automatically saves, it crashes.
Oh.
So you can imagine that, oh, I didn't save in this game. Well, the automatic save is pre-mission, so you have to do the entire mission again. So in a way, the game forces you to scum save. If not only so you don't lose your progress, right, and you don't have to do the entire mission over again. And there's some other issues like the computer in essence is allowed to cheat. You only have 4 mechs. They can bring as many mechs and as many turrets and vehicles as they can, and they sort of waste after it. And the enemy's almost always suicidal. Like, you won't be suicidal because you don't want to lose your pilots and have to spend a lot of money. But they just throw, it's like 15 light mechs. They can only do like 5 points of damage each. But there's 5 of them, 10 of them, and they come at you and they go melee. It's like, this is ridiculous. The challenge in that game is more about, and this is more tied to the tabletop because it's a tactical tabletop game originally in 1984, BattleTech, tonnage, right? How heavy and how strong your units are. Like how many missiles and guns and armor, and the heavier your mechs are, usually the better are, because essentially it's more of a management game where you manage your heat, you manage, that's how much your mechs can do something before they shut down. Your armor, because you have this incoming wave, so you're gonna take hits, right? This is not a kind of game, for example, like XCOM. If you get hit, you die or you're severely wounded. But then you have people that can heal the wounds. No, here, there's no pickups or power-ups that you go like, oh, I want to heal myself. So it's a good game for what it is, and I like it because I like the universe and I like giant robots and all that. But it's not for everybody. And I play, and it's sort of become like Stardew Valley. It's become the kind of game that I play when I don't have anything else to play on stream. Like, oh, let's just play that. But it's not. I wouldn't say it's one of my best games. It's an honorable mention, and hopefully they'll keep on improving it. But again, one of those things, if your game is kind of broken in the beginning and you haven't really fixed a very critical bug like that, then I'm gonna have to take some points out of it, definitely.
Yeah, have you actually finished the campaign to that?
Oh yeah, I finished it already. Yeah, I'm doing it again, and I added some mods, but I haven't heavily modded it, just because. But they're mods, like mods that open up the map and stuff like that.
So let's see. I played actually, this is 2 games, and that's I played Yakuza 0 and Yakuza Kirigami, which is remake of Yakuza 1. I actually played the Yakuza 1 first over 0. Very Japanese. And so melodramatic, yet so serious at the same time in terms of its main story. But everything else about it is just so goofy and very Japanese. And it's really entertaining, but it can be really overwhelming because there's so many side stories and so many little mini games to play. You don't really ever have to play any of these. They're just there to amuse yourself, or sometimes they help you level up quicker. But both of them they're both very fun games to play. I kind of want to play the second one, but it's I got to give myself some distance between having played these, just because it is kind of overwhelming, and it's I want to play something else now.
I think the best game I played this year, at least the best experience on stream, and ironically some of the worst, but not really, I suppose, the fault of the game entirely, is Dark Souls Remastered. Why? It's a good game. It's a pure game. right? It's all about your build. It's about dodging attacks. It's about learning how to play the game and mastering it. It has exploration. It has a very interesting world. It has elements of story, like it has characters and lore, but it's not so heavy-handed that you have to follow it anyway. You just sort of like, okay, this is interesting stuff, and you find out and you talk to people. And it was a very cool experience because people really came into chat and were like, oh yeah, no, you're doing this, okay, you do this, do that, try this. I had a very helpful chat. The parts that I found difficult was that the game, at least this version of the game, I also told that Dark Souls 2 also does the same thing, even worse. It relies entirely too much on being on ledges as a difficulty thing, because most of the time you have to parry with shield or sword, but also doing rolling, right? You roll away from attacks and stuff like that. But if you're in a ledge, there's a good chance it's an automatic death roll, like, oh well, and you die and you have to do it again. The whole thing of dying and doing it again. It isn't the dying and doing, oh, you die a lot. It was like, oh, it's hard. That's not the crux of Dark Souls. At least Dark Souls Remasters, I played it. It's about the learning, right? Oh, you died, but you feel you can actually do it. Like, oh, I know I can do this. It's a matter of figuring it out. And once you figure it out, you get that sense like, yeah, I did it. This is awesome. The other thing about the ledges is that I suffer from vertigo. It's even, virtual vertigo. So I really get anxious when I'm, near ledges because I feel and sometimes I go to points I literally kill my character just to sort of get over it. And it's like, okay, I'm feeling nervous. I'm just going to kill my character. And for people who have played Dark Souls, people in chat might be talking like, oh boy, yeah, there is an entire section of the game which seems to have been inspired by Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, where it's an entire cave of near or completely transparent crystals, which are jutting each other away. Spoilers for people who haven't played Dark Souls. It's a sort of late game kind of situation. So literally you're walking on air. And for somebody like me who suffers from vertigo, is like, literally I was in tenterhooks. I was very nervous. It was nerve-wracking. But thanks to people in chat who were like, hey man, don't worry about it. We got your back. Just take it easy. Do this, do that. It actually was something I did. And I think I would not have finished that game if I wasn't doing it on stream. Right. So that happens to be my best gaming experience of the year, bar none. In spite of the tense film moments and terrifying moments that I suffered when I was in some of those areas, but overall, yeah, it was good.
Let's see. I played on a few games. Like I bought brand new that came out this year that I actually purchased was Vampyr. It was a good game. It sort of feels like a mid-market game, which it's clunky. It's a little clunky. It's a little awkward, but it's fun. It has a very interesting mechanic that kind of keeps you from like save scumming, and that's like every time you make conversation, you talk to somebody, or you make a choice, the game auto saves, like just without even asking you. It will auto save, and there's no save slots. Well, there are save slots, but you can't manually save at all.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, every choice you make, anytime you kill anybody important, that's it. Like you have to live with your choice. And this is from the same creators of Life is Strange. So, and strangely, it's like the opposite of Life is Strange, where, oh, I can just rewind time and undo my immediate choices and look at all the outcomes. Nope, you can't do it here. If you piss off somebody through the dialogue tree, you don't get any more chances to try to learn more from them. They'll just like, no, I don't want to talk to you. Leave me alone.
Interesting.
It's very interesting. The combat is a little clunky, although I was kind of disappointed that I kind of, at the beginning, I'm like, oh no, I'm a vampire now. Like, I shouldn't kill anyone. But apparently all the human enemies, I thought you were going to have to try to avoid killing human enemies because, well, they're human. And it's like, no, killing humans bad. But No, there's no like moral quandary with killing them. It's just they're just there. You just kill them.
Enemies.
You, yeah. And it's kind of weird because you can bite into them and drink their blood, but then like the regular NPCs, they give you a lot more experience for killing like actual named NPCs. And if you learn more about them, like their history, and you get more experience from eating them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the game kind of does punish you for not killing NPCs because the enemies scale up really, like they level up really fast.
Hmm.
So it's trying to push you into killing the NPCs to make the game a lot easier, but I guess that's supposed to be like you got to be a good guy to try not to eat it, but you kind of have to go through hell. The
Mm.
game's a lot harder if you're good.
Mm.
But it's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's clunky, and my main gripe with it is like it was being sold as a $60 game. It's like this game is not $60. It's a $40 game.
Yeah. I think talking about games that are brand new this year that I played but were clunky, Pathfinder Keymaker. Played it. It's basically, people who don't know, it's sort of in the tradition of Baldur's Gate and stuff like that. It's actually based on Pathfinder, which is a spin-off of Dungeons and Dragons Third Edition. So it's a complex DNA that the game has. Interesting thing about that game is that I think the real problem was that it was too ambitious, and it was Outcat Games is a small studio, and they took on too much too soon. And essentially, you can feel the game is undercooked, right? It has a lot of bugs, especially once you pass the third or fourth chapter. It has tons of loading screens, which are very slow. So the game, which is already pretty long, just feels longer, unnecessarily so, right? And there's also a death spiral where it's like, oh, start making these choices, you're gonna fail. So it's more than just killing enemies and getting XP. You have to, manage your kingdom and stuff like that. And that means you got to start over again. I don't know anybody who hasn't started over again a playthrough in Keymaker. And I don't know a lot of people who actually finished it on stream or off. So I'm thinking, and the last patch that it got before I just quit is like, hey, it's the loading screens became even longer, or it would crash during loading screens.
Oh.
So, and literally, it's like you go to a new location. It's like an older game, right? You open a door and go to a location, loading screen. Get out again. Oh, I had to do something outside. Loading screen. I need to do this. Loading screen, right? I move certain paces. Loading screen. Right? And also the game was, for a game like that, in running my machine on PC, it was not really properly optimized. It ran a bit too slow. Like sometimes, if you cut away from the game, if you're playing the game, the characters sort of move very slowly. Or they would very weird. If you click on something, the mouse and everything else will react quickly, and the commands, but the characters themselves, the animations of the characters going, like walking to places, stuff like that, they will be slow. But then you just click away from it, Alt tap, and go back again, and sometimes they'll speed up to like normal speed or double speed. It's like, yeah, this game is not properly optimized. So yeah, I mean, it's a shame, and it was a new game. I bought it for $40. I didn't buy the other up prices because I usually don't do that. But it just basically hits that pet peeve of mine of, yeah, you basically sold me a game that was incomplete, so I can't say it's a good game because
it
isn't.
I mean, it's one thing too if like a game's incomplete but it's still enjoyable. That's another one. It's like it's incomplete and it's a detriment.
Well, I mean, what I played of it was enjoyable, right? But
overall,
I mean, the fact that it is incomplete is like, yeah, I gave you my money, and it's not like, oh, it's gonna have a follow up or something like that, or a side quest or anything like that. It's just, it feels incomplete, and I think they need like 6 months to a year to finish, which is a lot, But we'll see. I'll probably go back, and when I'm bored, I'll probably be like my second game, off-stream game, and I'll finish it. I'll probably cheat or something just because I already played it, and I don't want to have to grind again just and die a lot of times. So, yeah, it does have a lot of quality of life improvements, and I think are very important. Like you can, the Twitch difficulty. One thing I always did was that if one of my guys in my party survived the fight, then everybody survived. They were wounded. They had to be, taken care of. Whatever. I like the camping dynamics, mechanics. So the characters were very interesting. Even though I had Chris Avalon writing for it, but so far I didn't meet anything that was like, oh, KOTOR 2's level hackery. So overall, it was good, but it would have been, I would, by my own standards, I cannot criticize other games for being incomplete and relying on the patching culture and then give this game a pass because of it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In order to be consistent, I gotta say, yeah, that's a major strike against it. And the damn loading screens are just too long, and too many of them.
Yeah, that's kind of disappointing too, because that looked like a fun game. Let's see, the other game that I probably bought brand new that's I guess like mainstream would be Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Hacker's Memory. It's a bunch of subtitles. So this is kind of a case of like, oh, be careful what you wish for, because I'm like, I saw this, it's like, oh, it's a sequel to Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth. That was the first one, and this was on the PlayStation Vita, and this one's also I was kind of glad to see it's also got released for the PlayStation Vita, and it's also ported to the PlayStation 4, but you gotta pay for those separately, which is like a pet peeve of mine when it comes to cross play, cross save capabilities. But this is a game I was looking forward to because I'm like, ooh, I really enjoyed Digimon Cyber Sleuth, and it's like this looks more of the same. And then I played it, and it's exactly more of the same, unfortunately, and it got really dull really fast. And this is coupled with like, first off, this is what I would call like a triple A acid flip, which is you pretty much take it the exact same game over, and you take the assets of it and you just recycle everything. This is pretty much like Final Fantasy X-2, where they pretty much took all the environmental assets, and that's the same. And they might added like a couple of new environmental assets, and they added a few more new Digimon to it, but not and character models, but they didn't really do much. And the story too, it's like it made me kind of realize how sort of forgettable the first one was. I remember certain elements of this, but the story for this one is sort of like it's sort of happening concurrent to the first one. But these are just like these other side characters that weren't in the first one. It's just their story that's happening along with at the same time as this. And they're just kind of in the background, and they pretty much run into every other character except the main character from the first game.
Yeah.
While they're having their adventure, and it kind of starts off like, oh, I kind of wish I was hero, but I'm more like a side character. But he becomes a hero of his own story, and it doesn't make sense either. There's a lot of stuff I hated about this game. Like the first one has you like you can pick your gender of your protagonist, but this one you can't. And I thought it was gonna lead somewhere, especially like given his best friend has clearly a crush on him, but then they kind of back out on that. Like no homo.
Queer baiting.
Yeah, essentially they queer bait that relationship hard. And then it's like, okay, so what was the point of making this character a male, like living in it just being a guy? I don't understand why. And he's not voiced, it's nothing. And at the end it's just like, oh, okay, things happened and I didn't care. And I didn't have, it was okay, but I didn't have as much fun with it as I did the first time around, essentially.
Yeah. I think there's a warning there, and I think I'm going to close it. We're really getting a couple of minutes past the hour. With another game, well, actually, the last game that I bought new, and I won't say much about it because my real criticisms both are in the one of the videos is posted on here on the VODs, as well as I think it requires its own. Probably the end of the year, my own end of the year stuff. It's gonna be where I really gonna talk about this particular game. But this is what I'm gonna say about this. Far Cry 5.
Oh.
It's a good game, but for the story, which is usually I don't say because there's people who watch this podcast for the last year or two, right? I'm a very much gameplay first kind of guy. But in the particulars of this game, they decided, oh no, we're going to give the story a mechanic that's going to interrupt your gameplay. And I don't want to go more into that, but I think the lesson I would learn from that, I'm referring to the name of the channel after all, is that do not, under any circumstances, pre-order games, right? Or even buy a game out of the first week when it comes out. Certainly, especially as a streamer, so I'm talking about myself, my personal experience, and again, I will touch on that more later. Do not jump into trends. And I think both Keymaker and Far Cry 5 are examples of me seeing other people playing this game. And like, oh, this so-and-so Distracted Elf, Adam Coble, just to mention two people, Idme JP, whatever. Oh, they're playing this game. Frame Loss, which is, a great guy who has his own channel. You should check it out. Oh, they're playing this game. Ergo, I have to play this game. Because they're playing it, right? I was always interested in Keymaker, so I could say that I was, hooked in that. But when it came to Far Cry 5, I should have known better, because I did, because I played Far Cry 3 and Blood Dragon, and But I said, oh well, maybe they're doing things differently, and they didn't. So I think that's gonna be of the games that we played this year, and the lessons of that. I'll get more into it later, in the stream. Because I'm gonna curse a lot and spit in the air. It's gonna be a whole thing. I would say that do not, if you're a fellow streamer who's watching this, especially you starting out, do not jump into trends because everybody's doing it. And if you're just somebody who plays games, I would say it's good to be excited about a game, a franchise, etc. And there's other games like Andromeda that we're going to talk about as well, but we're not. But I would say that be weary, right? I know being cynical is overplayed, being an angry gamer is overplayed, but a little bit of cynicism, a little bit of weariness, a little bit like, again, we talked this a lot during the year. Don't forget that you're a fan of gaming and a gamer and a player of games. You want to identify yourself, but you're also a consumer, right? And as the kitty will tell us, there's one does not exclude the other. So I think that's my last game of the year that we're going to talk about. Talk about it,
and
but
I totally agree. Especially, I think for next year, the game we all kind of have to watch out for it's
Anthem.
Not Anthem. No. It's gonna be the that other world game.
Oh yes, Obsidian.
That's sort of kind of picking, whether it was intentional or not. It was probably more intentional. It's kind of piggybacking off of the failure of Fallout 76. Mm-hmm. So
we'll see.
Let's see if they can live up to expectations.
It's Obsidian, so. Yeah, I'm gonna let other people play that first and see what happens. I'm definitely not buying that new. I'm gonna keep my eye on it, but not gonna jump into that pond, that deep side of the pond. So before we do our shout outs and close the show, I'd like to thank everybody who's been watching the podcast in the past year. People are coming in and out watching and commenting and all that. This was the year that I became an affiliate, and I am very, very close, according to the metrics by Twitch, to becoming a partner. The only thing I require, and this is a call to action, I'm not going to lie to you, is that if you like what we're doing, myself with Chapelmon, and you want to comment and comment in the chat, just jump in the chat and invite your friends and just have a good time. Because I will tell you, one of the reasons why I mentioned Dark Souls Remastered was because the chat was so lively. and was so supportive. And I like to thank everybody who's been supporting the channel this year. It's been amazing. Thank you all. And Chapman, where can we find you on the interwebs?
You can find me at Chapamon pretty much everywhere. I am Chapamon_Aragon on Twitch and on Twitter, and I am Chapamon on YouTube.
And of course, you can find me here at the Lessons Learned podcast. You can find me here and on YouTube, where I put the VODs of the podcast there as well. On Twitter, on the Rafa Writer, and if you're still around somewhere in Tumblr, you can also find me on the Rafa Writer as well. So thank you everybody for coming, and I hope you have a great Christmas. And we'll be still streaming BattleTech until the end of the year. I don't know what I'm gonna be. Probably try to do something special for Christmas and something special for New Year's. I don't know exactly what it is, but I'll come to think about it. We'll see what happens. But for now, thank you, and we'll see you when we see you. Bye bye, guys.
Bye.